Hey everyone, Dan McKenzie here with the McKenzie Law Firm. We are an estate planning, estate administration, and small business counsel law firm in the Denver, Colorado area. And I was recently looking over our website statistics and noticed, hard not to notice actually, that our most popular post by quite a bit is a post about disinheriting family members, so leaving a plan that would cut out certain family members. So it struck me because I don't really feel like we get like a ton of clients in here who are trying to do that. It happens every now and then, but it is not like it's an everyday occurrence by any means. But it's certainly, that's the post that's grabbing the most attention online. So people must be searching for information about that and thinking about it. So if you're one of those people, I thought I would make a video just kind of giving you some stuff to think about. There's a few things you want to kind of go through and just make sure if you're going to disinherit someone that you've really thought it through. So the first item you want to think through is, okay, who are my heirs? And so a lot of times that actually is relatively obvious, but not always. So the heirs are anybody under state law who would inherit from you if you did not leave any plan. So just to be clear, if I leave a plan that cuts my kids out, my kids are still my heirs. I don't get to change that. I can leave my kids out of my plan if I want to, but they are my heirs. So, and they would, the reason that matters is because they do have certain rights if a probate process has to happen, especially. So we'll go over that in a minute. But understanding who those people are, because sometimes we get clients coming in here who say they want to disinherit somebody, and that person really isn't an heir. So the usual answer is, if you have a spouse, it's your spouse. If you don't have a surviving spouse, then it's your kids. If you don't have a surviving kids, then we go out to parents, and then brothers and sisters, and then nieces and nephews. And then if we still haven't found anyone, we get out to grandparents and aunts and uncles and cousins. So we usually don't get that far, but going through that line and thinking through who would be maybe the 2 or 3 kind of lines for me. Is there anybody in there that's a problem? And so, like I say, sometimes yes, if we're trying to cut kids out, they usually are heirs, but ex-spouses are not, stepkids are not in Colorado at least. You want to check your own state's law if you're watching this from some other state, but those people don't necessarily have a right to inherit anyway. So just make sure before you leave a will cutting someone out that that actually needs to be done first, because maybe it would be unnecessary. And then you get through that process and think through, like, is this a good idea? Like, is this actually something I should do? And I kind of, I look at disinheriting as kind of the nuclear bomb of the estate planning idea. And by that, I just mean, like, yes, there are circumstances where, nuclear bombs, frankly, get used, or, you can probably imagine a scenario where maybe you think that could happen. Well, it's the same thing in estate planning. There are circumstances, certainly, where disinheriting is a good idea, or at least justifiable. But you just want to really think it through, and it should not be kind of a real easy call, because frankly, the people who get disinherited are usually, they're at least hurt, if not angry. And where is that emotion going to be directed? Where is that negative emotion going to be directed? And maybe you, but you're not really here to bear the brunt of that by definition. So a lot of times it's the family members, the surviving family members, who have to deal with any fallout from that decision. And so, again, that doesn't necessarily mean you shouldn't do it, but you just want to be real thoughtful about, okay, how exactly really is this person going to react, and who's going to have to deal with that? Because when I see people get disinherited, it's very rare that they're like, yeah, I really was not a good son, or, I deserve that. Like, they don't think that. They usually don't think that. So, most stories have 2 sides, and even if it seems real clear to you that this kid would not expect to receive anything from you, or that they would understand, given the nature of your relationship, that they would get why they've been disinherited, I would not necessarily assume that. So, because sometimes the ones who have the most strained relationships feel like they're the most deserving, honestly. So you just don't know how people are going to react. That's a common thing in estate planning. We just don't know how people are going to react once there's money out there. So, and again, getting back to understanding who these people are, who your heirs are. You just need to be aware, like if you cut someone out, if you cut an heir out, and there's a probate process, like they actually do need to be notified about that and given a chance to complain about it. So if I leave a will, for example, again, that cuts one of my kids out, like even though they're not in my will, again, important part of the court process, which is probate, is sending them a notification, letting them know, like, hey, you've been cut out of this will. If you want to learn more information about that, here's where to come. If you want to submit an objection or raise any arguments about why that was inappropriate, then here's where to do that. And then you also need to just be aware that in a lot of circumstances, yes, you can do whatever you want with your money. You can leave it to just about anyone you want. There are a couple of constraints on that. And so one is spouses. Usually you cannot cut your spouse out without some sort of written permission from them to do that. And there are circumstances where, spouses agree, especially like second marriages, maybe later in life where they're both coming in with their own kids and their own assets and they want to keep things separate. They will do a prenuptial agreement or a postnuptial agreement to write that down. So, but if you don't have such an agreement from your spouse and you try and cut your spouse out, and at least in Colorado, and I think most other states, if not all of them, spouses have the right to take what's called a spousal election and actually have the will set aside and take a certain amount depending on the length of the marriage and the amount of assets that we're talking about here. So you need to consult with an attorney if you're thinking about cutting out a spouse. I mentioned earlier, stepkids are not necessarily entitled to receive anything, but if you have kids and you're married to someone who is not those kids' other parent, again, under state law, actually, they are entitled to receive something if you do not leave anything for them, or I'm sorry, if you do not leave a plan. So like if I'm married to a second spouse and I have kids, and I do nothing right now as I'm making this video, the spouse is entitled to a certain amount of money. It adjusts for inflation every year in Colorado. So right now it's the first $175,000 in my estate, and then my kids would split with my spouse everything thereafter. And again, I can change that, but just you need to be aware that the kids are heirs. And so, thinking through that and just understanding the consequences of who those people are, how they would react to being told that they've been disinherited, and thinking through, is this the best way to do this, and how are these people going to react, and what are my other surviving family members going to have to deal with. And then the last issue is just making sure, if you are going to disinherit, that you are very especially thorough about making sure your plan is properly executed, all the formalities are followed, that it looks, the optics really matter about how it came together, that it wasn't necessarily done in some sort of rush, that there's no room to argue that you were unduly influenced by the family members who are receiving the estate instead of the person who was cut out, that you have capacity to do what you did. So, I think in most circumstances, working with a lawyer, we do add a lot of value, and you really should do your estate planning with a lawyer, but especially if you're going to go down this road and leave certain people out of your plan. You just, like I say, the optics really matter, and you just want to make sure that it's just, if it's being scrutinized, especially closely by someone, that it is, there's just less room to raise formality objections or objections about the process that was used. So usually using a lawyer is part of that. So if you want to have that conversation with us, we are happy to do it. Again, we're in the Denver, Colorado area. Phone number is 303-578-2745, and you can see us at themackenziefirm.com. And I hope this video was helpful and got you thinking a little bit. Thanks for watching.